Welcome to Labor Lounge Podcast. I'm Anthony Abrantes, Assistant Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Eastern Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters, the Carpenters Union.
And I'm Cyndie Williams, Executive Director of the CCT. Together as your co-hosts, we'll explore the world of organized labor, bringing you behind-the-scenes stories and insights from inspiring union leaders, dedicated partners, and community change makers. In each episode, we dive into authentic conversation to uncover what unions are really about beyond the headlines and the myths.
Whether you're new to the movement or a union ally, our conversation, showcasing diverse voices and real-life stories, will explore union hurdles, triumphs, labor's rich history, its role in workforce development, all while shedding light on how unions create lasting change and foster economic growth and creating generational wealth.
Join us as we build a broader coalition, elevate future generations, and showcase how unions contribute to creating a positive cultural legacy.
Tune in, get informed, and find out how organized labor is making a difference.
So tell me about this journey for you guys. What are you doing?
Well, I'm just going to segue too, because I think you hit the nail on the head.
Nice.
For lack of a better phrase.
Ba-da-boom.
There is so much satisfaction in being in the trades. And Anthony and I both are tradespeople that came through and, have developed into other roles for the union. But certainly, my greatest memory and what makes this such a pleasure for me is job site radio. It was always, the classic rock, the Q104. I heard you throughout my workday.
Awesome.
And I can imagine that, I've been out of the industry for a little bit now, but I can imagine that even if times have changed where they're maybe not listening because of safety protocols, they're plugging with pods in their ears listening all day long, because classic rock is the job site radio on union projects. So happy to be here and happy to be with you, Ken.
Yeah, we love being part of the job site, and everybody tells us, from a farmer in Union Square who says, you and I pick tomatoes every day, every afternoon. Like, oh, okay, I love being on the tractor with it. I love being on the job site, it's the universal sort of language that, keeps people energetic. It's not going to be offensive, and we think of it as workplace radio now.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something earlier about communities were pretty much revolving around blue-collar jobs, whether it was manufacturing or construction. The industry's changed culturally across the board, whether how we listen to music, how our carpenters are on the job site and how they're listening, if they're even listening to it anymore. But the sense of community has changed, right? Because we're in a different world now, and we talk about it on our show all the time, where I think over the decades we've kind of devalued blue-collar jobs when there's a lot of bright, smart people that want to build things that, have a passion for construction. And, unfortunately, that's a dying industry for many, but I think we're starting to see a comeback. And I think for you, it'll be enlightening to hear a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with now, because it has changed culturally.
Yeah, I feel so sad. I don't see anybody like or I shouldn't say that. That's a blanket statement. I see so many fewer younger people wanting to learn a trade, wanting to apprentice, wanting to work with their hands. Mm-hmm. Everything is. I go back and talk to my high school. I want to be an influencer. Yep. That's not a job. Mm-hmm. That's
a hobby.
That's saying I want to win the lottery. Okay, yeah. But that's not a business. That's not a life plan. As opposed to, and everyone I know can't get good help. To get something done, to hire. I've got somebody who I work with who's a builder who has helped me do that. We have to wait, not for the list of projects. We have to wait until he can get a crew together, because there's a handful of skilled people he likes to work with, and it's hard. And that just shouldn't be. You should be able to get a construction with all the construction in this city. Yeah. How can you do it? Which kind of is where the Union Rat Patrol came from.
Yeah, and we were going to ask you that, because how did that come about? I mean, obviously there was rats around the city based on what the working conditions were or what somebody was trying to expose on a job site, but you kind of took the lead and put that on the map. How did that all come about?
That all the credit in that world goes to Maria Melito, who's on middays here, Q104.3. She started posting pictures of the Union Rat Patrol, and our Q audience, as you said, so many of them on the job site, they started sharing it. They started sending it into us, and that became Maria and Q104.3 and me of being able to share that as we go around. Because, listen, I'm for anybody, no ethnic barriers at all. Join the union, learn the trade, be a skilled professional in whatever you do. There's a great lifetime to be made. There's money, there's insurance, there's job security, and there's a union behind you. It's such a better life that I don't understand why more kids aren't being told, why don't you try this?
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I think, first of all, I thank you so much for being a champion of the unions and making sure that the message stays out there regarding better benefits, pay, etc. Because there is a counter narrative to that out there, that construction isn't a viable job. And we work really hard to make sure that we get in schools and continue to talk with school counselors and allowing people to know the access that's out there to them, and the learning that they can do, and easy access to learning through apprenticeship for free when they come through our schools and training centers. So, to have advocates out there that are not in the trades and just, really just a champion for us is really instrumental. And one of the things that when we're doing Labor Lounge, sort of being an outside influence is what we're looking to connect to. We already know this is a great thing. Anthony and I have done it for many years, but we want to connect to people that can help us to reach community and say, hey, why don't you consider this, right? And so the trades are certainly something that are a viable option for folks that are even, we connect to college education. There's so many classes that are designed for smart people, because you have to be technical, skilled, and have bright brains in order to do this type of work. And it commands high pay. So that misnomer that you're just taking a blue-collar job, that's not reality. And certainly you can make a very healthy living, raise a great family, and for us to be able to connect to you, to have that outreach is incredible for us.
Oh, my pleasure. You're right. There's an alternative narrative out there that just fat cats sit around. These union guys just sit on their butt all day. Okay, so to anybody who actually believes that, I'm just going to challenge you. Take an hour, any hour of the day. When you see a construction site, don't walk by during a break and say they're just sitting there. Spend an hour not during a lunch break, mid-morning, mid-afternoon. Just watch them for an hour, and you tell me if you see anybody sitting around drinking coffee, or if you see people working hard jobs, working together, working as a community, the accuracy of what is done. I sat Saturday morning, they're putting up a building across the street from me, and had my breakfast watching the crane operator. Bringing drywall up, bringing the team, how they set up the straps to bring the next load up, how they cleared things. The safety officer with the horn who's blowing that there's something going up. The way they did it was absolute, like, military precision. And they didn't, they were working in tight space in New York City on a street, and they move that thing on a dime. And it's absolutely fascinating to watch pros do it. And if you don't get turned on by having that skill set, I mean, that's amazing. And it's something you can learn. I love playing baseball, but I didn't have the skill set to be a major leaguer. I knew that as a kid. I enjoyed it and I was good. But this is a trade. You'll find your own level, whether it's woodworking or metal lathing or whatever it is. Once you go in, you'll find your spot. You'll find the thing that you're great at, whether it's electric, putting in a new bathroom. And the guy who formed the pan was so passionate. He was so artistic, explaining how he learned to think like water and how he bends the metal pan so that the water can't go in, it's got to go away, and he outthinks it with he was so passionate about it. I loved watching somebody as an artist, and believe me, there's an art to doing this well.
Yeah. And I do want to go back to the Rat Patrol, because whether you realize it or not, that was instrumental in keeping the trades on the map and people getting understanding. Well, why is there a rat out there? What's the rationale behind it? And when we have picket lines or you see rats or banners, that's not just necessarily always about just protecting the workers on that job site. It's about changing the culture across the industry. And the people that are working in the industry are skilled people. That's why it's called the skilled trades, right? And they deserve the compensation we're getting. Plus, it's a dangerous job. And I'm happy to say that while you probably had a couple of generations of folks that didn't want to get into trades because the expectation from parents was the only way you're going to be successful is you go to college. Now I think parents, guidance counselors, teachers are realizing that is not the only way to be successful. And we are absolutely seeing an influx now of people coming back to the trades.
Oh, thank
so
God.
much more
Thank God.
that you can't keep up the demand. Because the industry has gotten so accustomed to cheating workers now that you're seeing it pivot back, the pendulum, a lot of these developers do not want to pay people a good wage. They don't want to implement safety standards. They don't want to give them retirement. They don't want to give them health care. And part of why we started Labor Lounge podcast wasn't to educate people on the social piece of what unions do other than teaching somebody a skill. It was more about how do you build a coalition where people understand the movement and how important it is, and having validators say, hey, listen, this isn't about blue collar or white collar. When people make a good living, that benefits everybody, including the business community, which is who we want to work with. But it's been very challenging, as you can imagine. Decent wages and safety you got to fight for. No one wants to just give it to you. And
isn't that insane, by the way? I mean, wages is negotiable. How could safety be negotiable? How could having enough people to do the job, how could, having safe work conditions ever be negotiable? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You would think the insurance companies would demand it. We won't give you insurance unless everyone signs off on this project, because we don't want to pay for you being what you would save is going to cost us more money.
Absolutely.
So I don't understand the logic of that stuff.
Yeah, it's certainly a race to the bottom, and especially you may get it on the front end of the bid being lower, but on the back end, you're not calculating all the fixes that are going to take place through the years, having to call back people or the time and material that they didn't put in the bid. There's so much to it that it becomes complicated in a scenario that you really have to peek under the hood to understand. But I think what Anthony and I have really just tried to do with this Labor Lounge podcast is connect to the middle class, right? Connect to people outside of us to try to say, hey, what does it take to have a community that thrives? And what are the working parts that it needs to be? And wages is always what it comes down to. So that people could have a livable wage. And we are the standard for livable wage. So, public projects and public work is the standard is set at a carpenter's rate, or the rate that is established is the livable wage in the area. So we just try to get that out there, that outside of these public projects, you have private work that could bid very, very low, and to your point, get away with these types of infractions, if you will, because people turn a blind eye to making money. And we're out there saying there's people in your community that live right here that want to work on this job site and can come back and spend money in your community. So we want to make sure that you're doing right by these folks and try to connect wherever we can to these communities, labor leaders, church leaders, etc., politicians. We're willing to talk to anyone that will help us to create that coalition of change.
Are you guys going out to schools? Are you going to high schools and things like that?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what you're seeing now is there's probably a couple different avenues on how people get in. One is there's your mother, your father, your grandfather, your uncle, your aunt made a referral that getting into the trades is important, being part of a union is important. Then there's the intentional way where we go out into communities, whether they're underserved communities, underrepresented communities, where they might not necessarily know what's available to them. Then we're in high schools, which we've always been traditionally, and vocational schools. What we're doing now, since parents are buying in and guidance counselors are buying in, now we're actually getting into middle schools and putting in curriculum back into those schools that have been gone for the last couple of decades. And there's actually such a demand that the schools cannot keep up with the enrollment in those programs.
Really?
They can't do it, right? So they don't have the capacity to do it. So we've kind of figured out ways to circumvent that, where you don't necessarily need a wood shop anymore, right? You can have a mobile carpentry kit that rolls into your classroom, and your teacher doesn't have to be a professional carpenter. The teacher learns the curriculum and teaches the students on a project-based system. And the success rate is unbelievable. The enrollment rate's unbelievable. And those kids now have an idea of what they want to do if they're not going to go to college. And the other thing we've done to adapt to what the expectations were in society was people wanted to go to college. Well, we gave them the best of both worlds. Now, if you go through an apprentice program in many trades, you're getting college credits for free as part of that apprentice program. So you have a higher education and you're a skilled tradesperson. What else could you ask for?
That is just a perfect scenario.
Yep.
If your aspiration isn't to be a doctor or lawyer, if that's something that's being, be a doctor or lawyer, an accountant that your parents are saying, but that's not your métier. That is not what drives you. It's what I say to every young person here. Pick that thing you love to do, that thing you enjoy, the thing that gives you pride in doing. Do that. I've wanted to do this I was the artsy fartsy kid. I was doing I was writing plays. I was doing plays, writing plays, acting. I was doing stand-up comedy. I built a high school radio station with selling pizza and cupcakes. And I was just doing like the plate act with the guy spinning the plates on the sticks and knocking on every door and doing all this till radio burst open and was the big thing. And so I went to Poly Prep High School, and it's, fancy school and, doctors, lawyers. And I was the guy on the artsy fartsy group and taking shop and taking mechanical drawing and art drawing. And like, well, what are you going to do with that? So let me tell you, those shop classes with Mr. Vey and mechanical drawing with him gave me so much because I could build scenery. I could design a set, and I understood how to make it work on paper. I don't have blueprint skills, but I could design exactly what I wanted it to look like and learned how to build a rake, how to build this, how to put something together in pieces so that it comes in the door, assemble it on stage with dowels. Everything that I learned of a trade skill has benefited me my entire life, which is amazing. But I'm being serious. And as far as unions go, for Jim Kerr, Shelley Sunstein, for Trevor on the morning show, for Maria, me, Carol Miller, for our entire air staff in all these stations, the only reason we have jobs, we have families, we have a career is thanks to SAG-AFTRA, thanks to our union. And where the union isn't strong, where it isn't present, where they weren't voted in, there's nobody working there. There are no live people on it. And you just see it. Either you believe in each other and say, look, this is good for everybody. I know this is costing a little more to pay us a living wage, but look what you're getting back. And look what we can do to help you make money.
And I think that's the challenge that people don't realize is that you can bring balance and have sustained good paying jobs, create them, and also be a profitable, entity and organization. And I think people always feel like you have to sacrifice one for the other. Well, if we have to pay union wages, then we're not going to be profitable. We got to shut the doors. That's not necessarily the case. I mean, there was a time where the majority of these buildings, around the studio now were being built 100% union. You're lucky now if it's 5% of the market is a union market share.
Really?
Right? It's the same developers, same landlords. Nothing's changed other than the culture and expectation. And that's why it's extremely important that we have these conversations, because I think the narrative out there is you cannot be a profitable entity or contractor or developer if you have to pay decent wages. That money, when people make money, that money goes right back into the system. People aren't saving money, let's be honest, right?
Right.
They might save their retirement and their pension because they can't touch it, but the money that's coming in is going right back into the system. That's benefiting the small business, the grocery store, the big developers, the real estate firms, all the vendors that are supporting the communities that we're in. And plus, it changes the culture in certain communities when people have sustainable lifestyles. And I just think that's the part people don't realize is we do not have to sacrifice one for the other.
Yeah, the way I look at it is you're putting up a big building in Midtown Manhattan, and who are you going to rent to retail for? You want a restaurant? You want a deli? You want some clothes? Well, the people who are building that building need a deli and a restaurant and a clothing store and things because they need stuff. And if you don't have that, well, there's no point in somebody coming in and opening up a deli if there's nobody around who's going to go into that deli and buy any food. It's cyclical. It's we
Absolutely.
all if you have a bunch of people working, the proof of the pudding was COVID. All of business shut down in Manhattan and really didn't come back because nobody was there to buy lunch. Nobody was there to run to the hardware store. Nobody's running to the dry cleaner to drop this off because they weren't here. When people come back and they're working and they're being paid, that money goes right back out, as you said, into their neighboring businesses and into the building that you're building.
Very good. Yeah. Pivoting if we could, because,
Sure.
just in all the different ways that media connects, because, you have a large broad-based audience, connecting through podcasts, connecting through your radio show. What have you seen as far as trends moving through, in recent years, just in that changing as we navigate into this new, designed way to connect to people? Podcasting is new for us, but we certainly want to know from your years of experience how it's gone for you and where you think it's going.
Yeah, I mean, what we found is that just as many people want entertainment, but their attention span, especially as younger generations than us, keeps getting smaller and smaller. That they listen now, maybe instead of listening for 20 minutes at a time, they'll listen for 3 minutes, turn off, listen back again for 3 minutes, turn off. They bounce around through a lot of different things. And what we did that was really, really smart and much smarter than me is like the iHeartRadio app that you download. And now we can see more and more people are listening through the app than listening on a radio. And the mindset...
Myself included, yeah.
Yeah. And the mindset was when I first met Bob Pittman, when our owner, when he came in, he shook my hand. He said, Ken, I've always loved listening to you. I love your passion. You're so sincere. Great stories. You just do what you do. I'll figure out how to get it to everybody. And I shook his hand. That was the greatest meeting I've ever had with the president, because that's what he knows how to do. From MTV and AOL to iHeartMedia, that with that app, you can get all of your podcasts streaming, all of your favorite radio stations, and it's all free on your phone. And we don't charge a dime for that level of entertainment. So just take it and be informed and connect with us.
Yeah.
And you and the right advertisers will find each other.
Sure.
You will hear the ad that you need. The advertisers, we can say, look, here's who's listening. Here's how we break it down. Here's where I think you'll do really well.
Yeah.
And the people follow it. Like you said, it's not getting money from someone. It's that everybody wins.
Yeah.
You know?
And to your point too, Anthony and I both travel quite a bit. We cover a 6-state region for the Carpenters Union, and the fact that I can listen to Q104 here in New York City area, but also hear it down in Baltimore or Maryland, wherever I happen to be, it's just great. I don't get the static. I don't have to figure out what station to plug to.
Right.
It just makes it so much easier to listen to your favorite stations.
I love doing Sunday morning breakfast with the Beatles that I get. So, Snowbirds, we're here in Florida. Give us a shout out. Or my favorite was, hi, I'm on vacation. I'm breakfast with the Beatles with you on the beach in Curacao. Mm-hmm. Give us a shout. What? Yeah, and that's the new normal. If there's an antenna, but there's also this thing called the internet. And when you're on there, it doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. The message connects. The message gets through. And, this is, important to America, but it's a global thing as well. Every community needs this, and you see it in Britain. Look at the horrific fire that they had in that residential building, because they used flammable insulation to save some money.
Yep.
What's the tower? I can't remember the name of the building. It was just horrific, and it all comes back to one thing: how cheap can we build it to use insulation that's flammable? Mm-hmm. You could do that. You could put that in a building and sleep at night. It's astounding.
Well, to that point, because I think this is where I think we fall short in society as a whole. You've interviewed some highly notable people and have some great relationships in the industry. In your experience, do people really understand, the sacrifices, whether you were part of a union or weren't part of a union over the last 100 years, that people have made to give us kind of everything that we have today, whether you're a blue-collar worker or a white-collar worker? At the end of the day, there were people that sacrificed to give us the 8-hour workday, for overtime, for benefits, for childcare, for sick leave, the civil rights movement. All those things somebody sacrificed for. And I don't necessarily know that society knows that, or they forgot about it. And I'm just curious to see from your perspective, what have your folks that you're in your arena, your network talked about? Do they understand that?
We do. There's some very egotistical people who think the world revolves around them. And, there are people big and small, from Taylor Swift and Paul McCartney, who take such great care of their crew, to take good care of everybody from the truckers to the assistants to it, that they worship these people. Taylor Swift, at the end of this Eras tour, gave millions of dollars to the crew, to everybody, to every driver, every trucker, every lighting guy, every rigger. Everybody got it, because she wanted to share the joy of the success. I've got a quote that I'm going to play you. I'm going to put this in. I want you to hear from a stage manager, somebody, Tony Melchior, who explains Paul McCartney and what he does, how he takes care of his people, and what it matters. And those are the people where you see the tours always work the best. And last time I remember Paul McCartney was at Madison Square Garden, he gave a shout out to all the truckers and said, by the way, they're here tonight. Thank you so much. How could we get around without you guys committing the commitment you guys have to go through brutal hours and logging and everything to get us there? Thank you. And, those are the ones, maybe it's easier if you're older or not, but, ego is ego. But the people who understand, this is my team. I'm this star. Bruce Springsteen, he's the star. But without the band and without the other 100 people that get him from where he is tonight to where he will be in 2 nights, understands how much effort and work goes into that. And that goes a long way. It's those little things, acknowledging the hard work of working folks, that
makes them more sympathetic to what you're doing and makes it more productive and makes a better culture for what you're trying to establish.
For sure.
So those little things.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. From the job site to a concert stage. You know, it's that kind of effort. If you're doing it begrudgingly or you're doing it because you know you're respected
Sure.
and you're proud of the work. That's the big thing. You're proud of the work that you're doing. And that's what I feel. Whether I do a great show today, whether you think it's the best show you ever heard or, God, he was lousy today, whatever it is, I know I'm going to put my best effort into what I'm doing. And I do that with right now fixing the dishwasher, and I do that with my radio show or whatever it is, whatever project I have to do. You know, it's like when my wife goes away with a dog, go visit her friend, and I'm alone for the weekend, well, you know, wild and crazy times, what am I doing? I'm power washing the floors. I'm doing the caulking that needs to be redone. I love that. It's cathartic to me.
It really is cathartic. That's a great way to put it. It is. You know, if you're going to catch me in a state of zen, you're going to catch me doing a project.
100%.
Really. I mean, during COVID, it was absolutely my saving grace. I think, being locked down, shut down, my backyard has never looked so good. We did a deck. We poured a hot tub. You know, we did a concrete pour. It was 80 bags of concrete. You know, but it is cathartic. You try to, you know, when you're done, as you mentioned, it feels good. You accomplish something. It's a black and white scenario. So
100%.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking right now, that maybe somebody listening is saying, you know, kind of thinking about it. I might want to do that. Where would be the first step? Where would somebody, young or old, somebody's been downsized in their 30s, you know, and didn't like sales anyway, or didn't like working in the financial markets, and thinking, could I actually pivot at like 32 and do this? What do you say to that person?
Well, I'll give you my perspective, and Cyndie can give hers. So
Sure.
we see that happening now, right? You see someone that went to college, you know, has all that student debt that they can't afford to pay back. And when they came out of college, they were still making $40,000 a year, even though someone told them that if you go to college, you're probably starting at $100,000, which is the furthest thing from the truth. And they've pivoted from having a bachelor's or master's degree in a professional environment to starting from the bottom as an apprentice at $21 an hour. And realizing that, wow, I should have done this as soon as I got out of high school. I would have had any of this student debt. I probably would have had home at 22 years old. And I would have been well into my career versus just starting from scratch with, you know, $100,000, $200,000 worth of debt. So we see that happening naturally. I think what we're seeing now, and I'll reference our jurisdiction, in the last 2 years, we had 16,000 people just in our 6 states try to get into the apprentice program. We were only able to bring in 2,000 because of union market share and density and what we can bring in to sustain our employers. So the people are out there. Whether they're going to go to college or not going to college, they want to get into the trades. We just need to change the culture that it's acceptable to pay people a decent wage, and it's acceptable to keep them alive so they can go home to their family at the end of the day, and it's acceptable that they have health care and they maybe have the ability to retire one day. I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is that there's so much pushback on that. But when we're talking about the white-collar industry, those things are built into the system. And I tell people all the time, there's no HR on the job site. Unless you have a union job site, the union's HR. On most job sites, no one cares about what's happening to that worker. No one's asking about their paycheck or, are you okay going home to your family tonight, without losing a limb or something. Those questions just aren't asked. And that's one of the biggest challenges. So part of a Labor Lounge podcast was to build this broader coalition earlier on so we can combat that narrative that's out there that unions are bad, like you said earlier, that people are saying, or they're lazy, or they're on break. Everybody takes a break. Just because you happen to see them sitting on a sidewalk in New York City, eating a bagel or having orange juice or coffee, doesn't mean they're milking the system. It means they're on break just like you are when you're in the office smoking a cigarette.
Exactly.
There's no difference, but we've kind of pitted classes against one another, which is unfortunate, and we're trying to use our platform to overcome that.
Yes.
Amen to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is a separation between corporate greed and livable wages, right? I mean, they're always trying to cut corners, and they always want to pin to labor being the cut point, right? And that's just not the way. Thinking about everybody who's educated enough knows, they look at corporate society and they see the 400% dividends that they're paying out to these corporate heads. Mm-hmm. They always want to use the excuse of labor being the cut point, and it's just not. It's not reality, and we need to make sure that the general public knows that they deserve to be paid well. And so, as he mentioned, there's thousands of people that want to get into the union, and then not enough spaces to fill them with jobs that we can place them on. Mm-hmm. And so we're willing to talk to and partner with anyone that'll hear us when we talk about organizing job sites.
Amen to that. Fingers crossed, guys. Tony, Cyndie, thank you so much for being letting me be part of this.
Well, thanks for having us in your studio.
Oh, yeah, we love it. You know, we're union strong here, everything we have. AI is the thing that's hovering over our heads, that's creeping in, that we're fighting against because, you know, AI is this thing that nobody really, no matter what they say, they really don't understand how to use it, how it works. They're using it, and it's absolutely not ready to be used, and things are being created by it. But the goal is to eliminate as many human jobs as you can in the acting world. That's what the strikes were about. Whether it's construction, they don't want to build a set. They just want to use a screen and have it digitally up there, which on one hand for outer space, we understand, but they're doing it now with courtrooms. They want to do it with offices. And it's, again, if you want actors, if you want people who do construction, who can light a set, well, they need to work, and that you need to pay them so that they can feed their family. Otherwise, they can't. There's not a profession there anymore.
Yeah.
You're eliminating the entire profession, and you're just asking someone who might know something, and it's not going to look like anything.
You're right. That longevity, you can't have a break in that. The talent has to stay working in order to be there when you need them.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, thank you for that.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, guys. This has been a pleasure for real. Union strong all the way, and here's to more and more work for union folks, because it'll be done right. It'll be done quicker.
Yep, same here, and thanks for wearing that carpenter sweatshirt.
Oh,
way to represent.
I wear it with pride. At the Apprentice Day, I love that. So one of my highlights of it, the first time I did the welding. I did the practice welding, and it was off the mark.
The virtual welding?
Yeah, the virtual welding. Yeah. They when I came back, and they told me that's the highest score anybody has made.
No kidding.
And that they're using that to the other kids going, so there's this DJ, freehand, who like absolutely could be on the job site now. And they said, why? How did you ever learn this? She goes, I said, no, I don't have a shop. I'm in my apartment.
Yeah.
So I have my little Black & Decker workbench. So I don't have a drill press. I don't have a bandsaw. A lot of work has to be done very carefully.
You have a steady hand. You have a steady hand.
Yeah, because, you know, if you don't, you're doing it again.
Yep.
So it came from that. So that was always one of my highlights. Guys, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Me wind and rain, you're some kind of butterfly.